I always thought if I ever had the opportunity to interview Bob Butler, it would be a tall order. Now, you might think I spent a long time coming up with that line, but it just approached me at the spur of the moment. We're at Saranac Junior High School. Our friend Bob Butler is here, and I don't know if this is going to be a swan song, and I don't even know if Bob can sing. But we're going to make him at least talk for a little while about a very interesting career. Robert, thank you for inviting us here.
Well, it's great, Gordon. I'm glad you came aboard. It is my final chapter in the education system, I think, anyway. It's after 32 years of teaching and counseling, I'm coming to a decision, or have come to a decision to, in fact, retire.
It's amazing how that creeps up on you, doesn't it? One of these centuries, I'm going to have to look forward to that. I left the radio business in 1997, and I meet people on the street who have no idea I work as a victims advocate in a full-time position at the probation department. They say, "How's retirement?" I say, "I don't know. I'm not there yet." 32 years.
Yeah, and they were very quick years. I mean, with kids, you never have a bad year or a bad day, so it's always been really nice for me. It's a job that you love to work with, and it's time to change careers after those years and see what else is out there.
You're still a young guy.
Well, thanks for saying that, Gordon. It's very nice. I appreciate that.
When we were driving up here, I was talking with Calvin, and I was trying to recall in my own mind what the circumstances were when I first met you, and I cannot. I do know that you did some color. Was that with Mike? Mike Mannix?
Mike Mannix and Ducky Drake both, actually, with Wiry and Weave. I did that for about 18 years. Just doing color was great. It was fun.
18 years?
Yeah. It started, I think, about 1972, 73, and went through several years of that. So I think it was about 18. It was a long time. Anyway, just doing that on the side with two good announcers.
Well, you know, your life has been involved with kids in one way or the other, and it's been connected with sports throughout the whole thing too, right? So it was kind of a natural for you to do color.
It was. I had coached college basketball at Plattsburgh State for a couple of years as well. I was coaching in New Hampshire, and I still coach boys and girls tennis here at Saranac Junior High School, high school situation as well. And hey, it's working with kids. It's great.
What was interesting about getting on the radio? Do you remember that first game you went to? I remember. I got to tell a story about Brad Ott, because Bradley's also a very good friend, and Brad played with, I think, the first club hockey team at Plattsburgh State, and he got up there with Mike in the brand new field house and started doing a game, and something happened, and he didn't realize he was on the radio, and a bad word kind of slipped in. You know, it's like the old football announcer. Remember the old bloopers tape? The 30, the 20, the 10. Look at that son of a gun go. Well, he did something similar, and he caught himself, of course, and we wish it were television because it would have shown a red face. He never made that mistake. Was it a fun thing? Do you remember that first game?
I can't recall specifically the first game. I recall being at the field house, but doing some of the games as well, and traveling around watching high school basketball has always been very exciting, both boys and girls, and so it's a nice opportunity to kind of watch the kids you have in school as well as the local high school athletes, and it was great. So I enjoyed that, doing the color commentary for several years, and it was, yeah.
Mike was a good guy to work with. Mike Mannix, our dear friend and a friend of the North Country, came out of the Army and started to work on the radio station and did sports and then did news, and it's amazing. Mike's still going strong. He's had a couple of medical setbacks, but by golly, I see him and he's still never had a bad day. You can ask him, right?
No, it's absolutely spectacular is what he always says, I believe. But Mike and Ducky Drake both are tremendous announcers of the North Country. They just bring the action very much alive. It's very exciting.
I love it. Sports is exciting anyway. Robert, let's go back. Now, this has got to be a little nostalgia here today. Let's go back to the beginning, because I'm sure a lot of people have no idea where you came from and what your education is. Where were you born and brought up?
In Campton, New Hampshire. I'm a New Englander. As my accent sometimes will give that away. But I came to New York State. I taught in New Hampshire for 3 years after going to Plymouth State College. It's the University of Hampshire at Plymouth now, but it's Plymouth State College. I went there for 4 years, and then I taught in New Hampshire at Mascoma Valley Regional High School near Hanover for 3 years. And then from that point, I checked out grad schools, and the place I could afford to go was Plattsburgh State. So I remember being accepted the day before I came here back in...
Really?
Yes, the day before I accepted, I got a call from the college saying, yeah, you're accepted. We lost your paperwork. So I came here and decided to check out. I had minimal to no money, so paid for my tuition and stuff, and I started going to the president's office and Ernie Rangazza's office, and I said, need any help? And I also ran into people who get involved with running a dormitory for a year, so that worked out great. It was one of those cases where I got a job coaching freshman basketball, JV basketball for 2 years, and ran a dormitory, and then I took more courses in the grad school here, obviously, and got my degree in counseling. So that led to me getting into finishing up the degree, and before I finished, I started checking out, well, one person in one of my classes said, there's an opening at Saranac Central. I said, well, that sounds great, I'll go check it out. So I came up here and met Morris Saladay, and Mr. Saladay talked to me for a little while, and he gave me a tour of the building and said to the people, this is the guy taking this gentleman's spot who just left here. And I said, well, Morris, thank you very much. That was the way it was interviewed then. I mean, so he presented my name to Bob Canale, and I was accepted as being a teacher in psychology, sociology, and history for several years.
What year was that now that you came here?
1970 is when I came here. That was in September, like the 1st or 2nd of September 1970. That was the day before school opens when they got the call, so it was interesting.
And did you, when you first came here, did you say, well, I'll try this for a couple of years and maybe I'll move on to a junior college or did you really say, I like this place, maybe I'll stick around?
Well, it's very similar to where I grew up in New Hampshire. It's 165 miles west of there, basically, and what was nice was it was, a very similar situation. It was, it was a very, it was a rural area. Big hub of the city of Plattsburgh, of course, is there, but I mean, outside of in Saranac, it was the same rural area I kind of grew up with, so that was nice. And I just sort of, bonded with the area kind of quickly, and I liked it. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and then that job opening came up and said, hey, I'll come back and check out teaching, and then whenever counseling opens up, I'll do counseling. Well, I taught until '88, and then for the past 12 years I've been a counselor at elementary 1 year, and then junior high ever since. It was great.
I mean, it took all those years for you to actually get to use that degree, although you're every day you work with kids, you're counseling them anyway, aren't you?
You do. I mean, teachers, they counsel all the time anyway, so that wasn't any big surprise to me, but to do it all the time was even more of a pleasure situation. I love teaching. I mean, that was great, working with juniors and seniors and also some junior high students as well. But as a counselor, you work with junior high kids all the time. 1 year in elementary was great. It's like a Pied Piper situation. All those little buckaroos running around, it was amazing. So it was great. And in junior high, the energy from kids keeps you young. And it's something that's so energizing and so exciting every day. It's just really unique.
I've always felt that way, and people know I love kids. Having had a connection with kids in my own family for a long, long time, and now up to a large number of grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and they do. And working as a victims advocate, I work with an awful lot of young people, and they do energize you. They keep you in shape just keeping up with them. So now, I want to take just a moment to commend the counseling program at Plattsburgh State because they're doing a wonderful job. The master's level program is terrific. A lot of people who graduated from Plattsburgh State are working very hard to get counselors recognized and licensed in New York State. I don't know if it'll ever happen.
It has to happen eventually in that situation, but certainly the program at Plattsburgh State was Ken Holsel and Tom Collins when I was there, basically, and it was a great program. Even Ken was his first year at Plattsburgh when I was there, and he was my not my manager, but my scorekeeper for the first year I was there in basketball. Really? It was great. He loved it. I loved it, and he's still in the area. He goes to Florida for much of the year now, I guess the winter months, and up here I saw him on the golf course the other day at Bluff. It was neat.
That's great. And Plattsburgh State has had some pretty great basketball teams. When you went to Plattsburgh State, what year did you start?
In 70 there, in 70. And that year was kind of a down year for the varsity, but JV squad was freshman squad was really strong. And those kids like So I think Dave D'Onofrio and Mel Bibbs and Jim, let's see, what's Jim's last name? Big Buckaroo. I've got a block on his name in a second. But
You did
he was
well.
a
You
6'6"
remember a
kid.
couple, yeah.
Yeah, just, and Bobby Marr, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, this big guy is memory block here, but he was there for 4 years, and they all played varsity except for Mel, and made it a very strong squad that led towards some championships later on, which was great. Norm Law was there then, and had a good squad.
Well, they did. They got some recognition not only in New York State but across the nation for some of their hot basketball teams. And in recent years, it's been hockey. Did you ever have an interest in hockey?
I never could skate. I used to be the goalie because I used to get my boots on and be goalie, but my skating was terrible. I used to have the old skates with not the high development they have today and do a lot of falling down. But eventually
And there's a long ways to go when he falls down.
there was then, and I think I've skated since I was probably in about ninth grade, so it was a long ways for sure.
But now basketball, of course, was your primary sport, but you also have played tennis most of your life.
Yeah, that was a great sport, conditioning, and without my family and stuff, it was a great family sport as well. So my wife Shirley is a good tennis player and racquetball player. But then the wheels go. The legs go, and so now I'm into golf as much as possible. Like us, we all fall in that category after a while, but
Just
that's
don't
where
throw a shoulder out.
No, you hope that you don't, but the body just says golf is it. So I guess after a while, with arthritis setting and all those things that go along with the aging process, I
go.
unfortunately cannot do anything except the golf mode, and not real well with that either. But I love golf
You're
a
not
lot.
playing tennis at all?
I still coach. I hit it with the kids as long as they don't have to move left to right, forward to backward. I'm fine.
What is it, knees that bother you?
Yeah. But I'm not gonna whine about that. That's just part of the process. It's just a couple operations. But with me, it's what they call a pseudo gout in your knees, and they kind of set up and they don't really move too well. So, but that's part of the process.
I think I remember when you first built tennis court. You built a tennis court right at your house, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Talk about that.
Oh,
What's that?
great.
What was that process like?
Well, I'll tell you, we in the backyard we happened to find a section of clay back there, so we dug the clay out of the bank and did a lot of groundwork with my father-in-law Harold LeVarn Way, my brother-in-law Rodney, and we just dug that baby out. He had all the equipment and set the proper amount of clay down there on top of a good excavation process and made a huge clay court. It was great. But, our family, we have 2 kids. Our house got too small for 2 kids, so we moved, and the courts, in fact, have kind of grown up since then. I go by there sometimes, kind of look and say, wish that was the same way again, because that's absolutely exciting. Clay courts, just easier on your legs. It's a slower process and helps slow guys like me keep competitive somewhat. So it was fun.
Do you follow professional tennis now?
Oh, yeah, I love it.
All the time, over the past weekend?
Well, this year, the U.S. Open are the most exciting parts. It's amazing. I watched part of that match yesterday of the Williams sisters. It's absolutely amazing.
That is an incredible family.
It is. You watch 2 daughters. And I have 2 daughters who play tennis, and they've been very successful. But that level of play is absolutely phenomenal. They hit the ball so hard, and they're so powerful. You get to have those touch games, and they bright, talented athletes who just they blow you off the court. It's great.
Their careers have gone in fits and starts, and one year you think, well, maybe at least one of them doesn't have what it takes to become a superstar. And now, after this weekend, you say they could go anywhere they want to.
Oh, absolutely, and they've had injuries with wrists and tendonitis, this type of thing, but those girls are so big and so strong, and they just have the positive attitude of competition. They just go out there and they give their all. Whatever happens, happens. And now they play each other in the semifinals tomorrow. It's amazing.
Isn't that amazing? You wonder where careers like that start. I suppose somebody, like a Bob Butler or somebody when they were little kids, inspired them. And parents have to have an unbelievable commitment.
Their dad and mom, I'm sure, did a lot of that. I know Shirley and I, with our kids, they started about age 5. If kids love it, they'll take off with it.
Yeah.
You just entertain the thought of just throw some balls out there and hit a few and then make little tournaments around with all these other kids, and they'll get rewarded. It's not win or lose. They all get rewarded for playing the sport itself, and then they build from that, and it's been exciting. My daughter, Erica, played on the Plattsburgh State team for 3 years, and I'm very proud to say she was an all-state tennis player, which was kind of neat. And she lost the semifinals of the SUNYAC tournament last year in both doubles and singles, but she played really well. I was impressed. And Tara's a tennis coach at Plattsburgh High School.
Yeah, look at the picture up here. We can. I don't know how much glare we'll get off it, but that's a great shot.
It is. So that's the final.
Who took
four.
that picture?
That was out of the press. That's
Oh,
from the
it was?
press, yeah. And I blew it up. That was from the Press Republican in, I think, '94 when they won Northern part. I mean, all the won the Section 7 title, and they ended up going to the Final Four in Queensbury. And that's with Andy Parks and with Tara, the captains of the team that came out of here to go there. It was an exciting time. It really brings families together and towns together. It's just neat stuff.
You know, some of the most pleasant experiences of my life, and the same with my wife Kay, are following our kids all around the countryside playing sports one kind or another. Absolutely. And as you know, the size of our family, a lot of little kids and a lot of Baker kids. Absolutely. And I talked to Calvin about it and others about in the summertime, every one of my kids played ball, baseball or softball. And sometimes Kay and I would go to 5 ball games in an afternoon, a couple innings here and a couple innings in Schuyler Falls and a couple innings over in Morrisonville, a couple innings in Plattsburgh. But those kids who are now, many of them in their late 30s and 40s, don't ever forget the fact that we were there cheering them on. Never griping and complaining, never hollering at referees and coaches, but just supporting the kids, whether they lost 48-1 or 110-2, whatever.
Sure. This is exciting because with the girls, I remember traveling with AAU basketball for Tara and competitive tennis for both girls, and we travel all the Northeast and probably United States and play in those tournaments. The fun part was, one is watching them play, but the most important part of that was being in the car for 4 to 6 hours with your kids, just talk about everything, about life. What a tremendous time to have.
What a captive audience.
God,
right?
they couldn't escape. They'd listen to mom and dad. It was great. And sometimes going different directions. One would be in a basketball game, one would be in a tennis match. And so you would swap off on given weekends. But I think the fun part, too, was when they were growing up, too, playing soccer and basketball. And in softball in the springtime was always fun on the local level. I mean, you know, my wife and I did the coaching with that. And it was fun. But all those kids that have grown up through the ranks now, it's just been fun watching me part of their life experience and watch those little kids making a contact with the ball, foul ball, like a home run to those kids was the most positive thing in the world. You watch their little eyes and it's like unbelievable. It's just an exciting time. So it was fun. And it goes by too fast, obviously, as you well know, Gordy. It's an exciting time when you watch your kids in sports or watch your kids doing anything, and they do appreciate your support being there. It's just you're there because you love your kids. And so you just you do that and be part of their experience, that's all.
It's different with girls and boys. Raising girls, far different than boys. I have many clients who are teenage girls, 14, 15, 16 years old, and it's tough with so many influences. It's tough raising girls. It's tough being girls growing up in teenage years. Altogether different than it was when I was 18 years old. But kids make it. How they make it, I don't know. The ones that do make it are strong adults, and during the process of doing this interview today, I want to make sure that our audience knows that it takes a lot of work to raise kids. And it takes a lot of work to try to grow up as kids, because there's so many different paths to go down. A lot of those paths didn't even exist when I was in high school. You know, I lived in a small town. Nobody was doing dope. I didn't drink. I didn't carouse. It was a small town where people just quiet and old-fashioned. Nowadays, it's tough. And kids, I'm sure as a counselor, you realize that. When you deal with these kids, the problems are unbelievable.
They really are. It's a whole different, kids are kids, but the times do change. The opportunities that are around are much more involved today. The one thing I think is tougher on kids today is the fact that the divorce rate is over 50%. So a lot of single-parent families trying their hardest to bring kids up, certainly. Kids grieving from a divorce situation, separation situation, and those kids, they struggle. They struggle. And all they want is a little direction. You can't change kids, but you can give them some tools to work with to help change themselves. But it's exciting to be part of that process, to give some kids some tools, some little help along the way. They can help change their lives. And if you can do that, it's like, oh, God, that's just exciting stuff.
It is for me, and I know it's always been that way for you. Just sometimes a kid, to get motivated, needs somebody to tell them that they're worth something as a human being. because unfortunately, and I don't know how I got into this topic except that it's important to me. It starts with love, with your own kids. You got to start the day by telling your kids you love them, and you got to end the day by telling kids you love them. And some parents forget that saying the words and giving that kid a hug 2 or 3 times a day, is where it's at, and they don't get that. So when they get somebody like a Bob Butler or somebody else that's working with them, counseling them, and telling them that they're worth something, then that may give them an advantage.
It's true. I think people either they don't want to tell them or they're afraid that they may not respond the way they want them to respond. And I think the tough part is, kids want to hear those words, I love you, and they want to be disciplined. They want positive discipline. They want to know where they stand. Being fair and firm is being very important with parents, with kids. I think the bottom line with behavior with kids, I think if parents realize that they can separate the behavior from the kids, great. I love you. You're a great kid. You may make some dumb choices. Every kid can accept that if they know that the behavior is sort of separate from them.
Yep.
There's no bad kids. I hear this sometimes and it makes me upset. So you're a bad kid. There's no bad kids. Bad behavior sometimes with kids, but you can change that behavior and kids, they accept that. It's like looking at a separate person and say, you're a great kid, but that's a dumb choice. Yeah, it is. They'll understand that concept, but they don't want to be put down in order to get the message. And once they accept that with themselves, it's great. I mean, parents, when they pick that up, or teachers, or anybody in a situation dealing with kids, will realize that positive reinforcement is the only way to go. It's amazing what you can get out of kids, what they get out of themselves.
Yeah, example is important. I know you've always been a strong example for your own kids and for the kids you teach, and you take your job and your life very seriously. And I think that's another thing. We'll get off this subject in a minute, but I think it's very important to tell folks today how important it is to be a good influence, and we'll continue that in just a moment. The guy's barely on the payroll, and he's getting paged on the telephone, and things are happening. We had to stop for a brief moment to charge our own batteries up and get going again. Bob, when we paused, we were talking about being an influence. Your job, teaching and counseling, you realize that kids are looking up to you, and they expect you to live a certain way in your life. When I was in the radio all those years, and even now as a victim's advocate, people look up to me to be an influence, and every now and again you have to stop and take stock of yourself and say, am I presenting the right image to my kids and my clients and my students, right?
Oh, I absolutely believe that's true. You have to, the old walk the walk, talk the talk thing, or the phrases of today, but I think you have to live a positive life situation, and I don't think you can be a person who is, reputation is very important. You only have one of those, and so what you do in your own life reflects on how you present yourself an image. You can't fool kids. Kids know exactly being straight with them, being honest with them, and being sincere with them, and there's no plasticity about that. You got to just be yourself and be genuine. I always felt you're no more important than the person you're dealing with at the given time. And I always felt you could work with them someday, and you treat them with respect, and mutual respect is the only way to go. So it's not ever talking down. I mean, I'm 6'7", and I know it's a tendency to me to talk down to people.
You're always
from a
talking
physical
down
point.
to people, whether you like it or not.
But I'll tell you, it's interesting because the kids initially see you as 6'7", and after that point, you're the same size sitting down. We're talking here or talking the hallway. It's an equity thing, and I've always felt that I'm no more important than anybody else, and I think it's a key factor, just being hopefully a positive role model and being a person who hopefully has some positive influence in their lives. I know miracle work. I have no, crown or anything like that. The point is that I felt always very positive around kids, and I think that again, what you get from kids is absolutely amazing. You get so much more than you ever give, and you give as much as you can. Absolutely, it's exciting that way.
But to be at this point in your career, sit in this chair and ready to pack your duffel bag and take your sneakers and head down the road, it's got to be a warm, fuzzy, wonderful feeling to know that on those one-to-one situations you just mentioned, that you have actually touched thousands of lives. I would never know how many, neither would you.
No,
year after year, students come and students go, but to know that you've actually touched their lives in some way.
It's true. It's always been novel to me because the true test is when you see them outside, when they've graduated on with things, and they come back and talk to you about things and thank you for the little things that you've done. Sometimes you don't remember all those little things, obviously, but the important thing is just having that connection with kids who become adults. Now I've gone through the generation after here, and so I've had most of the parents of the kids who were here, and it's always been, generally 99% of the time extremely positive, and I feel blessed that I've had an opportunity to deal with a job that I love so much. Sounds corny, but I'll tell you, when I walk out that door in a couple of weeks here and that door closes behind me, it's going to be very difficult for me to deal with for a little while that way.
Corny is okay. I think that's probably the backbone of this program called Our Little Corner. We should call it Our Little Corny, shouldn't we? Come to think of it is. But you know what? It's those down-home, North Country, hometown values that hold our nation together, and you'll never convince me otherwise.
No, that's definitely true, Gordy. There's no question about that. But the key thing is just being yourself. And just being yourself and allow kids and adults to be themselves, come in here and make it comfortable enough so what are the issues, talk about the issues, and hopefully come to some resolution of some of the concerns and have them a little strong when they leave this office, for example, about something. Make kids feel more comfortable about themselves, and it's exciting.
I want to know how often they come back. When you sit here, does all of a sudden somebody walk in the door that was a student of yours 22 years ago and say, "Remember me"?
They do. In many cases, they have their kids now. They say, "You're retiring. You can't retire now." I always like that. I said, "Well, I have to make a decision sometime to retire," so it's kind of neat that way. But you see them at basketball games, at football games. You walk in the mall. I mean, wherever a given day, you're in Plattsburgh or whatever, you will run by. I mean, I'm so visible anyway because I'm so big that people say, "Hey, Miss Butler, how you doing?" And then we talk for a while about what it was like them in high school or in junior high or whatever. And you get a lot of phone calls at home too, still batting around ideas about what to do with an issue with the kids or whatever it may be. Just stop by. It's neat.
It's easy for you and me to sit here and wax nostalgic because we've both been around for a long time, me a lot longer than you have. And I'm big too in a far different way than Butler is, so people see me coming down the street too. But it is great to have had that contact, and I try in my life not to have too many regrets. And I'm just wondering, in your case, what if there's anything you would have done differently now looking back on it, or did you look at it all as it's part of life experiences? Are there any points during your career when, son of a gun, I wish I'd done that? Or
I really don't think so. And I grew up in a small town in New Hampshire, and I know what poverty was. Well, we didn't think we were poor at the time. I mean, we had 5 gardens, and we did everything. We had a little farm, chicken farm, etc. And I decided to go into college to see what doors that would open up for me. And I mean, I made the choice to be an educator. What a great deal. I mean, what led me that direction? I don't know. Maybe it's fate, maybe whatever. But the point is, no, I really don't have any regrets about it. Point is, it's 32 years of a love for a job that you feel you're blessed with. Basically, that's basically it. I mean, there's no regrets.
A word that I use all the time, on camera and off camera, is passion. And I would always counsel young people to do something in life that you can be passionate about. Mm-hmm. How many people have you met who work in a situation where they're not passionate about it? They get their paycheck and go home. And I think after a 30-some year career, it would be terrible to look back if you couldn't be passionate about what you do.
I agree. You totally get immersed in something that you love to do, and there's your passion is there because, I mean, in school you walk in the door every day. You don't know what's going to happen every single day, and every day it's exciting and something different. And sometimes you say, "Wow." You just go back to experience to deal with some issues, but other than that, it's just one of those exciting situations dealing with the eyes and the energy of kids walking through that door. Whatever may be the day, they're having a tough time sometimes, but if you can pass on something that helps them get through the day, just give them their name, trying to get your names down. And as they get older, I'm not really as good as names I used to be, I'll tell you.
Boy, join the club.
It's amazing, but kids like to hear their names mentioned, and they like to have that acknowledgement for the day. Just, this is a passion from what you get out of the job itself, you get totally immersed in it. And when you're here for those 5, 6, 7, 8 hours in a given day, it's exciting. It's exciting that way.
And then you've been able to follow the careers in athletics and in business and in families of a lot of these people. And it's interesting to see how focus changes. I'm sure it's great for you to look at some of your students and some of the people you've coached go on to have sterling careers. And people, this school has graduated from kids who did very well in sports in college and even professionally after that, right?
Yeah. Probably the key factor is what they pick up from school, whether it's Saranac or Plattsburgh or Chase, whatever, the basic structure, the family's a key factor behind them to promote that. I think they see educators or teachers and counselors probably more than any other part of the whole big family situation. They do go on from here and play a lot of college ball, both boys and girls. When we first started, the girls didn't get the recognition that they should have and wasn't promoted as strongly. Now it's come to be that real equity is finally in the scene, and that's great. So it just affords them, education affords them the opportunity of college, in some cases some scholarship help. We don't get a lot of Division I athletes out of the whole area, but the point is it provides them for the future with college and life, and you want them to get a job they're going to love to do. You mentioned about the passion for a job. Get them a job they love to do, they enjoy going to, so they can really appreciate life more. If they get something they hate to do, that's depression. That just leads to real negative things that way. But if they are fortunate enough to get a job that they can identify with that strongly, really feel good about and really love, they're going to find that life's going to be much more rosy, much more positive and exciting.
When I used to go to graduations here, and we had so many kids, they went to different schools, but a lot of them graduated from Saranac. I would find it interesting to sit in the audience during graduation and determine how many kids were going on to college and what they expected to do. And, 30-some years ago, a certain number of kids didn't have any more expectations than getting out of high school, getting a job, and sticking around here and raising a family, and more power to them. Mm-hmm. But now, I don't know, is there a higher percentage of kids that go on to at least the community colleges after high school?
There's a higher percentage, and today you almost have to have that one more door opener. It's another piece of the pie, have a 2-year or 4-year degree that hopefully opens up jobs, and then master's programs, etc. And the tech program is really good here too. CB Tech's a good program to get kids who don't say follow the mode of going down to the other situation. But yeah, they do. They have to have that today to open up doors for them. Have to have a sheepskin, no matter where it may be, to get into jobs they may want to do. It's just the criteria. It's another necessity.
But the education is the power. I mean, all the people that I deal with on a daily basis in my job, I tell them, go to school. I'll help you get in Clinton Community College. I'll help you get scholarships, because just having that much more education makes you feel better about yourself.
Well, it empowers them for sure.
It empowers you because you can read contracts, you can make decisions. You're less likely to fall for somebody's scam or scheme if you have a little bit of education. It helps you to understand how to pay your bills on time.
Absolutely. I think empowerment is the whole thing right through, from kindergarten up through as far as kids. If you give them something that can help them control their lives, to be able to do things on their own that way, I think the key word today is empowerment, where people need to have that in order to kind of live in the most positive way. They have to have it to control their lives.
Let's talk about some of the highlights of this very interesting career of yours. What things pop into your mind? You told us about your childhood, about playing sports in high school. You only played 1 year college ball here before you made a decision to take another tack. But what are some of the highlights of your career in teaching?
Boy, highlights. That's a good question. I think teaching psychology and sociology for years in this area was good. And we used to do a marriage program to give kids a reality situation.
How well I remember all my kids going through that.
It was fun.
It was great. Explain that to people.
Well, what we did was I actually made up a contract where kids, the end of the project would be they'd actually get married. We'd get donations of people, wedding gowns and tuxedos and all this stuff, and actually go through the whole wedding process. But before that, they had to go out and actually on paper get a house, find a job beyond the $550 if they could, but usually it's like like $5 an hour type job or $4.50 at a time, whatever. They had to actually realize, go shopping for 2 weeks. They would have to try to find a place to live. All the different things you need, pay bills. And the key thing was, what bills are out there that you had to pay in order to exist on? They got a real reality check with that situation. They thought it was just going to be fun and games, and it was fun. I really enjoyed that course with them, but it opened up their eyes to, hey, I'm not sure we can live on $10,700 a year working at McDonald's. It just didn't work that way. But those kids who went through that project, and we had an egg project along with that, which was, what happened was the kids had to attach themselves to an egg for 2 weeks. And,
Boy, you're bringing back memories for me, because we had a few of those around the house, too.
I can remember kids bringing those in even at... the
egg is the baby, right?
That was the baby. That was the whole process of being a parent and getting an idea for 24 hours what that was like every day for 2 weeks, and to have parents sign a journal saying that they'd seen this and they'd done this and all this stuff. So that was pretty exciting stuff. Those are a couple of projects, but just from life to death, from conception to death, we try to cover the whole thing, if it's possible, in about a 1 month or 2 month operation. So it was very exciting.
Now they have little babies that have computers inside that cry and, oh my goodness. I never forget when I went to a basketball game one time, and this little girl who was maybe 12 years old was cradling this baby, and it was crying, and it looked completely real to me until somebody told me that was part of the course.
It was. That today is, they pay about, I don't know, $2,000 or $3,000 for these babies to have people go through the process of knowing what parenting is all about. But we couldn't quite afford that. We had to go with the egg because that was about. We had to wrap it properly so it wouldn't get damaged, because if the egg broke, they lose so many points off their project. Obviously, you won't have anything happen with that. But today, a little more realistic. We went see eggs and sometimes we had a 5-pound sack of sugar too, just to get the weight factor involved with that situation too. But kids always they gain something from that. I'm hoping something
they still
positive.
Talk about it.
Oh, I know. I hear that. The kids will see me that now we're adults, obviously, and say, "Boy, I don't know. That was always a toughie that way." But they gain some knowledge.
I can remember my kids when they went to Saranac. I don't know what grade it was. Let's say 3rd grade, and they'd come home and say, "Dad," or "Papa," or whatever, "My teacher wants us to write in words a description of tying your shoe." I remember the first one of my kids came home, and you try to describe every single motion involved in tying your shoelace, and it was quite a project.
Sure.
The stuff that kids remember now, that we sit around in groups and remember what they did in school when they were little.
Well, I remember as a teacher, probably kids come back and say this more often than not, I used to, instead of getting upset in class, I used to just go like this right here. And that meant the kids would write 1 page out of whatever, no more than 6 words per line and stuff. 1 page, because rather than me get upset and say, be quiet, they knew that meant, well, I guess my behavior's not in control right now. I'm going to take a different situation here, write the page, pass it in tomorrow, etc. I can tell you, kids would joke about that today, because just make it out of my pocket or my shirt, or have somebody else give it to them, and that was the end of discussion. It wasn't like you lose composure in the classroom. It was like they understand the situation. Hey, I got to make a quick change of behavior, or I'm going to have to be penalized for it in some stupid way of writing a little page here. But it never really got. I still kids laugh about that today. Come back and say, "Hey, thanks. You did any pages yet recently or whatever?" And I say, "That's good." So
that's something else about being a teacher. Everybody has a different idea about what they're supposed to do in a classroom, and some ideas are as good as other ideas. Some are way better, and some are way worse. But you had a unique way, whatever worked with you, and things change through the years. That's something else we can discuss here. Discipline in school, the rules, the law, and your own personal feelings. I bet it changed a little bit over the course of your long tenure.
I'm not sure if I've changed that much. I like to think I changed with the times, but I think...
We all like to think we never changed a bit.
Well, I'm not quite that stupid to think I haven't. It's just I really believe that it all comes down to mutual respect. If kids want to be entertained a lot in the classroom, there's no question, but you entertain them by just being yourself and high energy and moving around the classroom a lot, and I think... if they gain something from that, especially with psychology and sociology, it's just a practical type course. Kids enjoy that, and they know it's human behavior is always easy to talk about, and they would pick up on that and enjoy it thoroughly. But I think typically mutual respect and separating, again, the behavior from the kid. Hey, John, that's just a dumb choice. Great kid, I'm telling you right now, but that's a dumb choice. They can buy that. And you don't usually get excited about, if you maintain your composure in a classroom, they know where you stand, you're even-tempered. And, if you care about kids, kids will do basically anything for you.
I remember, it just dawned on me maybe 20, 21, 22 years ago, and you invited me up here to talk about hypnosis. That's a long time ago, because I think my daughter Barbie was in your class. Barbie's now a nurse on Long Island with a husband and 2 kids, and she was maybe 17. What year would they take it? Their junior year?
Senior year, actually, in high school. Some juniors, but typically seniors. Yeah, that was fun. We cover psychology, the whole lot of hypnosis, and you were one of the resident experts, and I appreciated that very much, Cody. So it's great.
I've come back to this school so many times. I always love to talk to kids. A lot of people who aren't teachers are frustrated teachers. I've done a lot of things in my life and have very few regrets. I've enjoyed everything I've done. But one thing that pleases me more than any other thing is to come back to school at any level, from kids in kindergarten or 2nd grade, and read to them or talk to kids and inspire kids. Tomorrow I'm going to talk to a graduate class at Plattsburgh State of how to use dramatics and storytelling as teachers. And that pleases me. You get instant response. Sometimes they'll let you know right up front if they're bored with what you're doing or if they're excited about what you're doing. And I enjoy the working with kids more than anything else, I guess.
Yeah, it is great. In coaching, I still do coach boys and girls tennis, and that's exciting. You watch kids perform. You give them some tools, again, in that situation to work with, too. And I find a whole different concept of boys and girls as well. With girls, I swear you can look right in the back of their brain, that computer, and you can tell them what to do, and they will execute it the best they possibly can. It's unbelievable. Guys have a different concept, and maybe being a guy that way, they'll give it their best shot, but it's not as though you see the same level. They'll shut out as part of a dialogue, but girls will go to the wall for you that way in the tennis court, a basketball court, or whatever, and guys will do the same thing. And I don't mean to put in that situation in any way negative, but it's a different concept, a different mindset in dealing with coaching of boys and girls in that situation, too.
Listen, when you and I were kids, well, I'll speak for myself. When I was in high school, your coach was, a teacher, an example, a disciplinarian. And, when I played high school football, the coach was not a psychologist. You did it his way or no way. In that respect, coaching, I think, in general has changed through the years, hasn't it?
It's changed a lot. It's, I think, you've got to be more aware of kids' feelings. It used to be the coach would tell you what to do, and there's no response back, and then you respect, and it's like it was done because you had to. I remember football coaches I had in high school that used to up and down the field with the duck walks that you can't do today. Will put you down as a way of having you raise your level of gameplay up. And really, I think just being honest and front with kids today, one is using volume possibly, but using it in a positive way. Kids don't know if you care about them. And if they give you information that they can use, they'll take it and they'll perform a higher level. It's just having kids believe in themselves, having them perform by that positive energy within themselves. They kind of just manufacture. There is a higher level, believe in themselves, and the confidence factor that you can give them. It's amazing what they can do. They don't even know themselves sometimes how they can perform at that level if they, in fact, will believe in themselves and you give that positive reinforcement.
Just thinking as you were talking, in terms of being in this field, you've had the best of almost all worlds. You haven't taught at a college level, actually, have you?
No, I've got a couple college courses in high school, but not at a college level, no.
You've had the best of all worlds. You've taught the little kids, the older kids. You've coached. You've counseled. Is there anything else you wish you had done? Any other aspect of it? Because you've done just about everything here.
No, I think kindergarten through 12th grade has been very exciting. I have no desire to go on and really teach college courses at this point. Beyond that point, no. That's pretty nice. That's pretty darn nice when you think about K through in every one. The earlier you get to kids and impact them in a positive way and help them direct their lives, the more beneficial. My hat's off to the elementary teachers. It's absolutely amazing at that level, and keeping them entertained and having them learn and energized. It's absolutely amazing.
They inspire me, and they do in this school system. I say the same in almost every school system we visit. I did come up here fairly recently to read to several different groups of kids, and I am so impressed with the teaching, the quality of the teachers, to have that energy and that intelligence, and to see that respect in a classroom, and to know that every one of those kids loves that teacher. Wow.
It's amazing. Teaching from junior high through high school, you don't always get a visual of the elementary. One year as a counselor, oh my God, the Saranac school system is absolutely amazing, and I'm sure they all are, and they all the situation. But I mean, being here and being part of that, I watch these teachers in elementary school and all the different schools around here. I'm amazed. And being in that room for them for like 6 hours and constantly being involved with their lives, the impact they have on those people is absolutely amazing.
Sometimes we say, just to make conversation, boy, they don't make teachers like they used to. They don't make schools like they used to. Guess what? They do. I can't tell you how long ago, it may be a month by now, when I went to Dannemora, to the elementary school, beautiful little old school. And I walked in, and they had a special program before they even started the day. In the gym, they lined up a bunch of seats that parents and grandparents could occupy. This was a career day that I gave one of the initial addresses at. But this is something they do every day. Yeah. And they have a little program to start the day. Not only the pledge, but the kids make up a weather forecast, and the kids are involved in every aspect of it. And I said, wow, this is what it's all about. The kids are inspired before they ever take the first course.
That's a big energizer first thing in the morning and getting their attention, and that just sets the tone for the whole day. It's real high energy, very positive. Kathy Moore does a great job up there in that situation, and the kids reap the benefits. It's great. They're part of it, so because they're part of it, they just get a jump start. It's great. It's great for them.
I remember she was very pregnant when I was up there, wasn't she?
She must have had a baby Friday.
She had her baby?
Boy on Friday, but it was a baby boy on Friday. I just heard that this morning. So
well,
yes,
we're recording this on the 5th day of July, 2000. That's wonderful. I was anxious to hear that because she was, like I said, she was very, very pregnant that day when we were up there. I had a great time, and I'm always inspired by kids. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about the politics of education, teaching in the grade school or high school level. Sometimes a teacher wants to say, listen, I wish I could do it my way. I think I've got some of the right ideas, but you always have to, there's always a juggling match from one day to deal with administrators and to deal with board members and other aspects of it. Let's have a few of your thoughts on that subject.
Well, really, I think if you do your job in the classroom and your key focus is on kids, and whether you're teaching towards a Regents examination or whether you're teaching towards just a daily lecture on whatever topic may be you're teaching, the biggest thing is, board members, they're all in this together. The bottom line is, if you did a whole theory about the whole community and all that teaches kids, well, the point is that you all do, but board members have their concerns about making the best system they have, and the superintendent has his values, and the bottom line comes down to the kids. If we're all here for kids, and if we can hopefully prepare ourselves properly for that classroom for that day, and make the best situation we can have for them, no one's ever going to complain towards you because it's going to be the positive situation. I'm not saying that we don't get complaints sometimes. I'm not that naive, but the bottom line is 99% of every given day, every given year in school is very positive. And when people realize as educators we're here to help kids get prepared for life, then we have our proper hats on straight, and we can go out and say, yeah, we did our best that we could do, and that's all anybody can ask from you.
This school has changed in many ways a great deal since the first time I made the trek to Pickett's Corners with my own kids. The physical aspect of the school has changed. Let's talk about some of those changes from the very beginning.
Well, when I was teaching at the high school was right where we are now, in junior high. This is now, of course, the junior high, and the high school, it's attached. It's absolutely unbelievable. The building is attached to junior high, which is obviously just south of us here, or in the same building. It's state of the art. I mean, that gym, I would think that gym is, it's like a little Omni. People say, my gosh, what a great hub. The buildings, I think, all been updated, and And basically, I think we have one of the best systems anywhere in the United States, not just North Country. It is absolutely a tremendous physical plant, and the classrooms, and technology, the computers in the buildings. It's a tremendous system right now. And I mean, it's the hub of the whole townships and several townships around here, and they can go by a school and say, yeah, that's my school. And they look gorgeous. And they are. And they have great educators inside, but most important, they have great kids in those classrooms on a daily basis. What else can you say about that? It's phenomenal that way.
You have to convince taxpayers that it's worth the extra
do.
money.
You do.
Voting on school budgets is a very heart-wrenching situation, and you've seen that happen a few times over your.
Oh my gosh,
over
I
the
have.
years.
And you feel bad because there are a lot of people on fixed income who, they work so hard, and it is expensive. It's expensive to run a school. It's expensive. But I think if we all believe that our kids are worth the investment, then it makes it a little easier that way. But it's certainly a struggle for a lot of senior citizens and a lot of people on fixed incomes, no question about that.
It's a good. I like to make some serious points when we do this program, as well as having a good time. I think it's very important for people to realize that they should take an interest in their communities and vote in all the elections. Otherwise, don't come back and gripe and complain that things didn't go the way you wanted it to. Especially true of school voting. It's hard to get people out to the poll.
It really is. If it's like a very low range thing of 2 or 3%, it's one thing. You get very low numbers. The higher in many cases the rate as far as the rate of increase as far as that's concerned. Of course, it's going to be higher numbers because people get very scared. And they want to support. Many people want to support, obviously, the system. Some people say, "I just can't afford to," and you can almost tell people coming in they want to, but inside it's very difficult for them to sometimes cast that yes vote because it is so expensive for them. That's a difficult task. And no one wants to pay taxes. Obviously, we all have to. It's a necessity of life, etc. We all feel we have to. We do our part. But again, we have a pretty good product in Saranac Central. These kids have gone to a great system, and so because of that, people realize that, hey, we just do what we have to do.
I can easily remember a time when schools weren't centralized. Schools were not centralized until after, at least in many parts of the North Country, until after I graduated from high school. There were neighborhood schools. Mm-hmm. There was a Morrisonville High School, for example. And the big controversy way back when as to where to put that central school. And believe me, there were almost some knockdown, drag-out arguments when the decision was made to put that central school here in Saranac. But a centralized school now covers a huge area. I don't think many of our viewers realize how big an area.
Yeah,
I mean, just watch those talk to school bus drivers, and they make some pretty long runs.
They really do. I mean, you go all the way to the Silver Lake Road and to the Clayburgh line and to Dannemora and to Morrisonville and to Dannemora, all around. It's amazing. The distance is phenomenal. Some kids are on the bus for like 45 minutes in a given day, maybe a little bit longer than that. And that's tough on kids that way. But it's huge. I mean, I went to a 2-room schoolhouse, so I mean, I know when there's 30 kids from grades 5 through 8 from New Hampshire to a larger school, it is kind of amazing. But these kids, it's a centralized school, and people have a passion for the communities in their schools, so it's very difficult for them to make changes, as it was Dannemora and to come into a Saranac 10 or 12 years ago. I mean, it's very difficult. People have a real passion for the community schools and don't want to lose their hold on that situation. There's no question about that. It's a very sensitive issue.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the philosophy of education. As long as we're talking about that, it changes. How best do we prepare kids for the world? How best do we prepare them for college? Sometimes we change our minds down through the years as to what they really need to survive in the world. Of course, kids have to at least know something about computers to get out in the world these days. That wasn't true when you started in the business because there weren't very many around.
No, computers were on our fingers in many cases, no question about that. It's a big change with that. I mean, I'm just learning how to use computers myself, and I watch these little kids in kindergarten, and I'm saying, they have more knowledge than I have from the first day than I will do in my lifetime. And it's amazing how that's just part of life today. There's no question about that. It's a big change, a lot of big changes that way, there's no question. And I think kids are prepared better. They have to have the tools of the trades of a lifetime, and hopefully they can decide as early as possible what they may want to do. The challenge, of course, is now we have great programs that even elementary and in junior high school we have a good home career skills program that does a lot of career education, career involvement with actual career programs where they go out into the community and for a day, shadowing projects. They go visit CV Tech. They get more knowledge in their earlier age today, but they don't really know what they want to do until they're almost in senior in high school, in some cases even beyond that point. So,
Well, who knows? Boy, when I can remember when I was a senior in high school, first of all, I thought I knew everything there was to know in the world.
Mhm.
And it took me a few years to realize I didn't know very much, and now a whole life to realize that I'm not very smart at all. But in terms of knowing what I wanted to do for a career, now that I look back on it, I didn't have a clue. I guess when I was a senior in high school, I wanted to be a civil engineer. Now look how far I came from that, or how far I went. I don't regret going into the radio business and doing all the other things I've done, but a lot of kids are sophomores in college before they make a real career choice, and then they get a degree and maybe even a master's degree, and then go into a completely different field because that's where the first opportunity was.
Oh, it's true. I mean, people have to have some knowledge of what they want, and I know I lucked out. I lucked out. I made the choice of education, and I didn't know until I did my student teaching my senior year that that's what I loved. I got in there, I said, this is unbelievable. This is great. I mean, I did not know that because you're an education program, but until you do student teaching, you don't have a real feel of what the situation's all about. And I'm sure that's with most people.
Where did you do your student teaching?
In Bristol, Newfound Memorial High School in Bristol, New Hampshire.
Did you really?
Yes.
What was that like?
It was a great experience. My eyes were just open. I couldn't believe it. Just you're in front. You have a captive audience in front of a room, and you just they have such a thirst for knowledge, and you just prepare for it, and you do what you can do to make sure they're prepared for exams and in the year exams, etc. It was great. What a tremendous experience.
So you knew that you must have felt the chemistry the first day then.
Exactly. I remember seeing there was a movie the night before with Sidney Poitier, and
I just saw him on Oprah yesterday.
Oh, yes, well, I couldn't believe it. I watched that program. I can't remember the title of it, but it was about a school that was out of control, and he was there. I said, "Oh, this is going to be scary." I walked in pretty scared the next day, but once you're there, it's like, it's amazing.
And yet, you talk to other teachers, sometimes long-term teachers, and that first day of practice teaching was absolute terror for them.
Oh, yeah, and no question, because people say, this is what I want to do, and I have to make this or break this. Well, if they love it, they'll find a way to actually get through the process and thoroughly enjoy it. If they don't like it, they need to change careers in a hurry. And that's tough if you go for 3 to 4 years. Now they have it so you start as a sophomore and do some practicum courses, in essence, or sophomore, juniors, and seniors, and all the student teaching and practicum courses today are more spread out. Well, when I was in college, it was the last year, so that was different for me. But me.
What, it dawns on me that something else has changed since you became a teacher, and that is what is and what is not politically correct. For example, there are people who would much rather not have sports teams called the Saranac Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, how do you have any personal feelings about these things? This is influencing how people are talking about colleges and high schools and grade schools and yearbooks and newspapers and whatever.
Well, I recognize there are a couple of issues probably there. One is that if people felt threatened or uncomfortable by that, in other words, if it was degradation of a group of people, that's one thing. But if it's praise of a group of people, I mean, I think the Chiefs and whatever issue may be, whether it's Chiefs or Indians or whatever, if it's acknowledging and praise and promoting that idea, that's another thing too. But it's true, it's a big issue, and a lot of teams across the country are losing that title. And if it was an issue that's of a sensitive issue that way, where people are uncomfortable with that, and it's really not the most appropriate thing, well, after a while they'll change it. But I think, you talk to people around here and they say, hey, we're in a situation where we acknowledge it because we support, Indians, we support Chiefs. But if it's, it's so controversial, or it's becoming more controversial. But the fact is, if it's honoring someone or some group, then I think it should be represented that way.
So there was never any real question about changing the name here in Saranac?
Oh, yeah, there has been. And it's come before the board most recently, I think. It's in the discussion stage right now.
Really?
So, yeah, and I'm not sure which way they're going to go with it.
It would be sad for me, strictly from a nostalgia point of view.
It would be, because, you grew up with a title of a team and in support of that, and you say, well, it's going to be different to see them call something else, but hey.
Yeah, we'll call the chefs, just take a letter out, right? But you know, I have to tell you, there are people who would argue against calling our friends to the north the Cougars. They don't want to name teams after animals. Some of these discussions are ludicrous, and there are a lot better ways to spend your time than arguing over that, unless you say somebody is being degraded or hurt.
Yeah, you don't want to offend somebody, but you also recognize that if the vast majority of people feel it's honoring a group of people, then, what's the problem, But I respect the information to make a decision on, but I happen to feel that it should remain Chiefs, but that's I may be in the minority of that situation for a while.
Has this room been your office for a long time?
This has been changed. I've been here for, since we from the elementary building to this building. It's been 4 years now, and I was in the elementary school upstairs in that building, and so this has been at least 4 years of being my office. This is the kids' office, I'll tell you.
This is a very interesting collection of things around. Some people like to put a picture of their family on their desk and a calendar on another wall, but I don't see too many square inches of space that aren't covered here. What I would love to have you do is point out some things in this room that are significant to you, why they're up there and what they mean, and just give Calvin an indication where they are and let him point the camera at it while you talk about them. Just look around the room and see what kind of memories we can evoke here, Robert.
Well, probably my two biggest influences in here, my daughter's picture here with Annie Parks, my daughter Tara, who the 1994 championship team from Saranac went to the Final Four and stayed in basketball. And that was in the press, and I had it blown up, and it just well, it captured my daughter and Annie, but it captured really women's sports, girls' sports, and that was pretty exciting. And so I kind of keep pictures of my daughters here on the wall, as well as my other daughter on the other side.
Don't whine. I love it.
Oh, yeah, because sometimes, we're going to capture it all here. We get a lot of the girls' WNBA symbols up here, too, and some of the Swish posters from Nike, etc. But we try to cover everything. WNBA, we get boys and girls sports here. And we have tennis teams, most recent tennis teams, and different pictures.
Who did the little caricature down in the corner?
That would be my daughter. My daughter
did?
tends to get the curly hair and the mustache, and probably my eyes are not that close together, but probably pretty close. So she kind of captures that.
She
character.
captured the essence there.
She does. So with that, it's like different teams, and kind of the kids come in here, of course, and.
Bob said Calvin said we have to get at least one picture of you standing next to him.
Okay. We got Deion Sanders. This is one of the biggest one I could find here on Deion Sanders, but we get different kind of collect hats and that type of thing, and instead of somebody stuffing a basketball on the playground. We try to capture as many things in sports as I possibly can, and we get different stores that donate these things, and Bo Jackson, most kids won't know who Bo Jackson is anymore, but he's one of those all-around athletes that was around before Deion, and he wears different hats and different things. And Jeff Burton, if people get involved with car racing, of course, is pretty positive and familiar right now. Nicky McCrary. My second favorite, or actually it's the equally favorite picture on the wall, of course, is my daughter Erica, and Erica
Beautiful girl.
Takes after mom, fortunately, Gordy, so that's always nice. And she was actually a champion in high school tennis player, which is kind of nice. And both girls and boys, it's always exciting. It's always good to brag about your kids.
I love it.
And then sports teams in the past, we have speakers have come in from the college hockey team and different tennis sports, obviously, over the years. We get the big bulb here, the
one that was knocking Calvin's head throughout the entire interview.
He had a good idea about that one. And also just, things that represent different sports, from running to football to basketball to baseball, etc. And we get a wall of fame with different kids in our team who have been
to the left,
right? Who have been honored in athletic situations, and a baseball signed by the first CVAC championship team over there. And
when was that, I wonder?
94. That was 94, the first one that came through. And we've had teams win since then, which has been kind of nice. 96 and 97, they've
I
won some
remember back
championships.
when in the 70s, there were a couple of pretty good baseball teams here.
Yeah, some real
Some
good.
of my kids were here.
It's been great because different, obviously different teams of different years, absolutely spectacular. Tennis is kind of new on our horizon since like 1980. It was down for a while, but we've been very fortunate to have great athletes and great sports teams in Saranac. It's been exciting that way. And you get Ken Griffey and McGuire and some of these other guys, she all swoops. And then kind of a wall of fame with different people over the years have come through. And so it's kind of captured. Kids come in here and say, wow, it's such a neat thing. I said, well, you like your room? Because it's their room. I said, I just hold the seat for a while, but it's really your room, so enjoy it. It really has a nice feeling of their personal room. And Rebecca Lobo, of course, is the last one here.
Where'd that headdress come from?
That was given to me, I think, by Dr. Votron. We had a couple. I have one other one. I have Larry Bird here. I just took over and gave to Wayne Chase. He's a U.S. history teacher at the high school. Larry Bird with a chief helmet on, chief hat on, I should say, or headdress on, and it was a big cardboard cutout. But that came from somebody probably back in the early 70s or late 60s that was given to me by a principal, and same over there with Michael Jordan and his Plattsburgh State Cardinal hockey shirt on. So
You're going to have to bring a U-Haul trailer in
That's
here.
gonna be tough, I'll tell
I
you.
hope you allow more than an hour to clean this place out, Robert.
Well, I do. My daughters will probably take some of us, put it in their rooms, and I have one daughter going to Radford, Virginia, to a school psychology program this fall. So she'll take a couple things with her, I'm sure, and Tara will have some in her own classroom when she gets a job in education, which is great too. So.
Well, who's going to take over your position?
Well, it's been applied for. There are like 15 or 16 applicants so far, and that'll be decided probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So
Do you have any input into that? Or?
I hope so. I'm part of the interview process. I like to think I have some knowledge about kids and what Saranac kids enjoy like any other kids, and what their responsibilities might be in dealing with staff and kids and administration, et cetera, and parents as well, obviously, to make us the best option you can possibly have for them, hopefully. So it's been great for me, so I want to make sure that it's great for them.
You've been to, I remember coming back to basketball games here in the 60s and early 70s. I forgot what the old gym capacity was. I'll say 600, and where they were 10 deep out in the hallways. There were some exciting years.
Oh, and that's the early 70s when you had the Super Chiefs of the past. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they started filling in the lobby.
Yeah.
And for those games, that was phenomenal because they had, modified or junior high, high school, or junior high, JV, and then varsity. And for the varsity game, they'd be starting here at 4 o'clock. So it's amazing because they want to make sure they got a seat for those games. Those were unbelievable with PHS and Saranac and Seton and great teams. It's phenomenal.
There were a lot of great years. A lot of, I sat in the bleachers for a lot of all kinds of sports. And my kids still, when they come back, they drive by here and they haven't seen this school since the 70s, and they say, wow. And they go in the gym to see if the banner from their championship teams are still there. And those old banners are still around.
It's nice, yeah. It's nice to honor, past and present teams with those banners from championship seasons for CVAC and Section 7 championships. It's great. I mean, kids come back and, that's my name. Yep. They're on several posters, or several, in some cases, it's great for them. So, yeah.
Whether or not these kids ever go along to become sterling athletes in college, whatever they choose in careers, they don't forget the lessons they learned in school. My kids and I talk about that all the time. They don't forget their favorite teachers. And in my case, some of my teachers were almost on a par with my own parents and the influence they had on my lives. When you stop to think about on my life, kids put up with I was a pretty rotten little kid, and they to recognize some spark in there. And as you talked about behavior, you're not a bad kid, but today, in this classroom right now, but those teachers I've never forgotten, and probably didn't thank them enough when I was older.
Yeah, I know what you're saying exactly. I actually had one teacher, remember, in high school, and we all can say that influenced my life tremendously. And she was almost like a replica of Olive Oil. She was just one of those ladies who was just a sweetheart. She just did her job, and she cared so much about you. But she had that visibility factor of looked like almost like a cartoon character, but she was bigger than life. And she used to, all your basketball games or all your football games or all baseball. She was just there. She was just one of those classic people. And she came in probably through a year one year. I never would have known her. Because a woman gets sick who was a great, teacher was involved before. She took over and she just took me under her wing. And because there's no halo over my head, Gordy. I want you to know that. I mean, I could get myself in some jams too.
It gets a little tarnished over the years. I try to adjust it. Needs a little body work.
It's over his head.
Yeah, see?
Right there.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Well,
That's what I used to get when I got a wrong answer. Was one of those.
oh, yeah. I got lots of those, and they were red, too. You know what else I was thinking about? You talked about mutual respect and having respect for teachers, principals, superintendents. I was telling Calvin, I like it when I go to read to kids in a little school, and there's 15 kids there, and I look in the back and I see the school superintendent in the back. And before I leave, he says, Gordy, thanks for coming up here.
Yeah, this was good. It's everybody has to work together. It's one of those situations where we all have to do our part to make it work, but the key focus is still on the kids. They appreciate coming from the outside because, it's great to have you and many of us come in and read, for example, those reading programs, those reading days. But just to come in to make kids pick up on the energy of information, we have a wealth of knowledge in our community, and they come back and share it with our kids. What else can you ask for? It's a tremendous situation that way. So I love it and appreciate it too.
Yeah. We've talked about family. How big a support has your wife been with all these wild schemes that you've had and teaching all these years?
She's been very supportive. My wife is a teacher at Plattsburgh High School. She's a biology and a research instructor or a research teacher, and she's a tremendous teacher herself. I envy her for what she does in the classroom, but she's always been a big supporter. And she's sometimes she shakes her head, what are you going to do with whether it's eggs or this thing? But after you do those things, and she said, oh yeah, if it helps kids, that's great. So that's been kind of
How
bottom
many
line.
years of marriage?
This is the 26th. As a matter of fact, the 14th will be 26. Yeah. So it's been great. She's a saint, obviously. So it's.
Better say it on camera anyway. Robert, we've covered that. Anything in the past now? Any significant events in your life as a teacher or coach that you've failed to mention here? I know we've talked about kids, and the effect that you've had on them and the effect that they've had on you. It's a nice formula.
It really is.
And when you look, I look at my careers here in the North Country, and I always feel as though I've received so much more than I've given, and that's why I keep on giving. But it's nice to look back on a career and say, yeah, it's just the magic has been back and forth,
Oh, it really has been. But you get so much more than you give. As I said before, it's amazing because the energy that you get from kids is phenomenal. And so being around them all day long is one of those things that you're amazed with. You shake your head and feeling how blessed you were to have a job that was so exciting for you. Highlights, I'm not sure other highlights. The point is, I guess just every day is a highlight. So it's been kind of neat that way.
I like that. It's a life is a continuum.
It is.
A few little fits and starts, as they say, along the way, but it is a continuum, and we are a compendium of all the things we've done and been.
Yeah,
And that's why it's not good, I guess, to have too many regrets, because hopefully we learn by some of those poor choices we made.
It's true. Well, we learn by my mistakes. There's no question about that. And I'm sure I've made a ton of them. But
Yeah.
just a question of learning. And kids will let you know if you made a mistake. They'll keep you straight that way. And hopefully you pick up on that. Not think of it as being anything other than just another lesson to be learned, and pick up that and go from there. You certainly do learn from kids.
So if you had advice for young teachers, now I won't say you're venerable, but you've been around for a while. So what advice would you give for young teachers just starting out now based on your wisdom and experience?
I guess one more year I'll have wisdom, but I think the key factor would be is you gotta love what you do, and you've got to commit yourself to something. But the key thing is treat kids with that same mutual respect factor. Make sure you always separate the behavior from the kids, so kid always has to have an out in the situation. Positive reinforcement, and really push for real strong self-esteem. With those things, I think you can't go wrong. I really believe it's true.
That's great. That's a good formula. Now, we are where we are today. There's no looking back. You can't have your job back. You've already
true.
made that decision. What's the future going to be?
Well, I'm not sure yet. I may like to do some marketing in some situations. I'm not really sure yet. I'll be running for political office this fall. But the bottom line is, I think I'll give a chance over the next couple weeks, after the next 2 weeks, of sitting down and thinking, well, what do I really want to do when I grow up, type thing. So it come down to a question of make some decisions, and it comes down to after 2 weeks. I don't have time to think about it yet, and I'll have some time at that point to.
How about writing? Have you ever done any writing?
I haven't done any writing, but certainly, I think every teacher, every educator who goes through a system would have a lot to put on paper or on a machine or a computer or whatever. But haven't given that a lot of thought, because I'm not sure I'm the best writer in the world, but I can certainly, the ideas will flow.
Experiences are there.
Sure.
Does your wife write?
No, not really.
Because with his dual teaching career, just if you were to sit down and just take notes on a yellow pad of paper about some of the things you mentioned here today, look, we filled an hour and a half of time
Sure.
with no problem at all, and some of the specific things that were gratifying to you, and some of the lives you've touched, and where these kids have gone, and how they come back. That might be something to think about, Robert.
I rule nothing out, because I really believe that, when you sit down and come up with, what your future is going to bring, now you have some time, things will kind of calm down a little bit more on that basis, if it ever calms down, supposedly. But I think, it may be an option, but I don't rule it out. But I haven't really given it that a lot of concern at this point. It just comes down to saying, well, what's tomorrow going to bring? Right now, I'm working on schedules for next year and finalizing some of that stuff. So, but it will be, in 2 weeks, I really can focus on other things, and that's going to be a big factor for me.
Probably not the perennial rocking chair for you yet.
I always say, geez, I hope that's not true. Yeah, I like to think that maybe have a little golf in store and always try to better your game there, but not really made a big decision about what I want to do. I know. I'm sure there'll be plenty of things to do at the house and that type of thing, but that will make it old fast. But something maybe marketing, something dealing with people, because something I still really enjoy doing, obviously, is with kids and with people. I may still coach for one more year or two. I'm not positive yet about that next spring, but.
And he wouldn't mind traveling, folks. If there are any prospective employers out there, as long as there's a good golf course or two, maybe you could have occasional business meetings every 2 weeks at Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, I could probably work something like that out. That would work out pretty well, thank you. Golf in hand, it would work.
Did you have your clubs custom made, or how?
Yeah, I had to. Probably not. They're not a lot longer than the average club, but I'm a lot longer than the average person, I suppose. So it's a question of getting down to strike the ball. But
This guy is so big, he could swing in the parking lot and knock down a chimney in Katyville. And his feet are so big, he has to go to West Plattsburgh to turn around. You've heard all the jokes, right?
I've heard of all.
How's the weather up there?
I think I've heard almost everyone that's been around. Anybody who's above average in size, it's true.
But some people would say, is it a blessing or a curse to be 6 feet 7 inches tall? Because I know people who are a lot taller than you. What size are your feet?
These are 14s.
I had a gentleman in my office who had size 23 shoes. And I didn't want to embarrass the man, but he realized he had size 23 shoes. He said, I just saved my money and try to save enough money to buy another pair.
Oh my gosh, I know that'd be expensive to get to that venture. Today, society's a lot bigger, so it's not unusual to have somebody who is above 6 foot tall. So, but
the good Lord gave us the size that we have. There's certain things we can change on our own, but you're 6'7", and you're going to be whether you like it or not.
True.
And the view up there hasn't been bad from what we can tell today, Robert.
No, I'll tell you, it's a good perspective. I can't complain at all, especially in the education field. I said before, you have a bad day dealing with the kids, but it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for Clinton County, for Saranac, for community, for neighborhoods, for families. Calvin and I talk a lot about families and religious faith and so on, and there is a lot to be said for this part of the North Country in so many different ways, and I always like to spend a few moments during this program to promote the area and the people in which we live. It's been good for you, and it's been great for me.
I moved here because I chose to. I stayed here because I wanted to. It's one of those questions. It's a great area. It is. People are great here in this area, and it's just it was a choice that I made, not because I had to. I love New Hampshire as well, but being here since 1970, it's been 30 years of my 55 to deal with a community which I thoroughly enjoy growing up in and living in. It's great. Raising a family here is super. So.
Who knew? See, when we came in here, people might think, wow, that interview has gone so smoothly. These people must have spent weeks writing down major headlines and outlines and deciding what they talk about and what they wouldn't talk about. I love it when it flows. You're a good friend and a good guy, Robert, and let me take this personal moment to say thank you for your contribution here all these years. It's you've had a big impact on the North Country as an individual. Young people might say, what could I do? You know, what can I do as one person in the world? You've proved that if you decide to get out and do something, you can.
Well, thank you, Gordy. I really appreciate that. It's like I say, it's no big mystery. If you enjoy something, you enjoy going out and doing it, you reap the benefits of that. So I've gotten a lot more out of it than I put into it until it's been great.
I think what you ought to do is take your oldest pair of tennises, the ones that smell the worst, and leave them behind the desk and just see if the next person to come in here can fill those shoes.
Oh, I'm sure they can. I'm sure they'll enjoy it thoroughly, and they'll enjoy working with the staff and the kids of the school system. It's going to be great. So it's going to be a pleasure for them, too. That I'll miss tremendously.
Bob Butler, Saranac Central School, thanks so much for your career, and thanks so much for letting us be a part of this end of it, Bob, because we've been a part of all the rest of it, whether you liked it or not. It's been great.
Yeah, Gordy, and thank you very much for coming up today. I really appreciate that.
It's terrific.
Thank you.
Good luck in everything you do in the future, although he makes his own luck. And who knows where we're going to be next time for our little corner.
Welcome to North Country Commerce, a business and community service of the Plattsburgh North Country Chamber of Commerce.
Well, now we can ask him the hard questions because he's no longer wet behind the ears. We're at Expo 2000, as you know, at the Field House on Ruger Street in Plattsburgh with our friend Zeke Fleet, who is the publisher of the Plattsburgh Press Republican for how long now?
Oh, it'll be 2 years this summer.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
We did take a wonderful tour of your facility. We've run it a couple of times on television around Clinton County and had very good reaction.
I had real good positive reaction from that also. A lot of people saw it, and it was nice for us, and hopefully it was nice for you.
It was really great, too. You know what another good show was, and we scared him to death when we did that show with Jeff Myers when he did his 100-year retrospect. And we sat there and Jeff said, I don't talk much, you know. You want me to talk for 2 hours? He was absolutely panic-stricken. But he's never been locked in a small room with Gordy Little and Calvin Castine.
No.
And he knew that he had to talk his way out of there, and he did it. And that was another very successful program.
Right. Jeff Myers is a very talented writer, and we sold thousands of the Century book, which was a recap of the last 100 years in the Clinton County area. So maybe there'll be something else in the work coming from Jeff Myers. Talking isn't his big thing. That's not why